So she says that if she could see Maurizio again, she would tell him that she loves him because he is the person who mattered the most to her in her life. When she was asked what she thinks that he would say in reply, she says, I think he would say the feeling wasn't mutual, darling.
So she's not completely deluded.
No. Welcome to the Compendium, an assembly of fascinating and intriguing things. We are a weekly variety podcast where each week I tell Adam Cox all about a topic I think you'll find both fascinating and intriguing. We dive into stories pulled from the darker corners of true crime, the annals of your old unread history books, and the who's who of extraordinary people. We give you just enough information to stand your ground at any social gathering. I'm your host this week, Kyle Reese.
And I'm your co-host, Adam Cox.
And in today's compendium, we're diving into an assembly of elegance, intrigue, and the secrets stitched into the fabric of murder.
I'm trying to guess what the clue is here. Is there like some sewing involved and killing?
Could be.
Killing
while sewing, yeah.
Two of my favourite pastimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, how about this? To tease you about today's story.
I need more of a clue.
On the 27th of March, 1995, a very well-dressed man was walking through the entrance of a very stylish office building just off Via Palestrio in Milan when he was suddenly shot 3 times in the chest and once in the head. As the man lay dying in the arms of the doorman, whoever shot him vanished through the meandering streets through the city of Milan. This merciless killing sparked the beginning of a years-long investigation into who shot this man. And since our victim had a lot of enemies, it was difficult for police to pinpoint just one person who would have wanted him dead. Today on the Compendium, I'm going to be telling you the story of the Gucci family. Father, son, and House of Gucci.
House of Gucci.
What do you know about the story?
To be honest, I don't think I know that much. I'm aware of the film that came out with Lady Gaga
and Adam Driver.
Yes,
yeah.
Not so long ago, and I know that there was some sort of like fight over who would take over. Am I right in thinking that from Gucci once he had died?
That's right. Yeah. So Guccio Gucci. So it was very succession-y.
I think that's the thing. I know the sort of legacy and what comes after, but I don't actually know what happened to him and how that happened. So I'm intrigued.
So now for a second, I just want you to imagine a tale that is so steeped in ambition, betrayal, and opulence, it seems like it can only be a story that is ripped from an episode of Dynasty or Dallas. This isn't an EastEnders grade drama, Adam, because there's no get out of my pub, there's no I'm not your mother, yes I am. This is a story about the saga of Maurizio Gucci and his wife Patrizia Reggiani and their quest for dominance over the Gucci empire, which sparked heavy speculation over whether Maurizio's untimely murder was in fact something that he had coming.
Ooh.
So I was really inspired to tell the story after we actually visited the Gucci Cosmo expedition in London at the 180 studios that showcased the brand's 102-year rise to the top. And I didn't realize this at the time, but Guccio Gucci, who of course was the founder of Gucci, and of course the grandfather of Maurizio, actually started out as a luggage porter working at the Savoy Hotel in London.
Yeah, that's right. So when you go into the expedition, the first thing that you see is you go into like a lift and the sort of lobby area of...
Yeah, and that was like a kind of a replica of the lift that was in the original hotel at the time. And like he would carry guests' luggage up to their room. And it was from there that he was inspired to make his own line of luxury handcrafted luggage. And just, oh my God, that exhibition was just so awesome, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
When you arrive, like you said, obviously you step into this 1930 style Art Deco elevator, which would have obviously been a nod to the original one at the Savoy Hotel that Guccio Gucci would have loaded guests' luggage into on the way up to the rooms. And then you are kind of like led into this maze of corridors and rooms filled with all their iconic archival items. And all of their stuff is displayed on these mechanical cabinets and turntables that open and close, and then reveal a piece of their kind of like their archival kind of outfits or shoes and things like that. So it was really incredible.
It's like what I describe as really fancy Lazy Susans. Just like
very
rotating.
fancy, very expensive Lazy Susans with Gucci luggage and Gucci loafers and scarves, kind of like
that.
just working their way around the room. And the thing is though, like when you're in there, it really does feel like you are transported into a world of kind of soap opera opulence. Everything was just really dramatic with the lights and the music and the corridors and the beautiful kind of handbags and luggage and stuff. At one point, I was expecting Joan Collins to just jump out and then slap me in the face. But of course, the bitch never did. But the thing is, though, that this wasn't just a fantasy that they created during this expedition, because after researching today's story, this is actually what their lives were like. They were constantly just surrounded by these beautiful things, celebrities like the Kennedys, and the entire exhibition is just way more impressive when you realize that they've managed to capture what it was like to be part of the Gucci family and the Gucci empire. It was like a soap opera. So like even the House of Gucci movie like was heavily criticized for being too dramatic and too over the top. But genuinely, after visiting that expedition, that's what it was really like. So I have a newfound appreciation for what they managed to capture in the House of Gucci with Adam Driver and Lady Gaga.
I really should watch that movie. Maybe I will after
Have
this.
you not seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
I thought we watched it together.
No.
Oh, Adam, it is so good. We're going to watch it tonight.
Sure.
So today I'm going to be giving you the compendium on how the Gucci brand rose to its iconic status that we know today, the decades of familial conflict that resulted in the Gucci family losing the company to a bunch of Saudis, and the shocking downfall of Maurizio Gucci, culminating in his untimely murder, essentially. So I'm really excited about today, and I hope you are too.
Cool.
But before we get started, should we do all the latest things?
Let's do it.
So this is a segment of our show where we catch up on all the week's happenings and share a quick tidbit, strange fact, or laugh at a bit of weird news from the past week. So Adam, what have you got for us today?
So my latest thing for this week is a real life Weekend at Bernie's incident.
I don't even know what the Weekend at Bernie's actually is.
Really?
It's a film, right?
Yeah. You don't know the plot of Weekend at Bernie's?
Not really, no.
Okay, then this is going to be brand new information.
Brand new information. Go.
So, a woman in Brazil has been arrested after taking a dead man into a bank in a wheelchair and trying to get him to sign off a 4-figure loan in her name.
Is that... Okay, so two things. That's the plot of Weekend at Bernie's.
It's basically these guys get invited to their boss's house and he's already dead, and they make out that he's still alive and they carry him around with him the whole weekend.
No idea. It sounds like a ball though. So this woman, she's from Brazil. She's gone into a bank. She is trying to, with, is it her husband?
They're related. I think it was her grandfather, I believe.
Shit.
So what happened was she was sort of speaking to the people at the sort of bank desk.
The teller, the cashier.
Yeah. Probably, to try and get a loan. So it's a bit more, in an office maybe. And the bank staff started to get a bit suspicious. And so they start to film the pair because they're like, something's up here. And they end up calling for an ambulance and the police because they're like, no, he doesn't look well. But she really commits to the role and tries to make out, like has conversations with him saying, oh, come on then, you just need to sign this piece of paper.
Yeah.
What do you want to do after this? Like speaking to him normally.
And how does she emulate his responses?
Well, he obviously doesn't say anything. And I think she makes out, oh, he's always like this. But at one point, she takes hold of his hand and then places the pen in between his fingers and then writes the check out or the documents to say, I want to take out this loan.
Oh, my God.
And then his head almost falls. So she lifts up his head with her hand. As if, and like, I can't believe she thinks she's doing a convincing job because the bank staff are like...
She's probably medicated. So she gets busted then, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, they ask, like, he's very pale. Is he okay? And she's like, yeah, he's like that. It's fine, it's fine. He's an OAP. They're like, well, if you're not well, maybe we can, help him get to a hospital. She's like, no, it's fine. But then I believe the police are called and an ambulance. And yeah, he's already dead. He apparently died a few hours ago. And she tried to use her uncle to try and get this loan, which was...
That's quick thinking. That's opportunistic.
You must have thought about this for a while, going, when uncle dies, I'm going to need to get a loan.
Do you reckon? I don't think she thought about it at all because, like, I reckon it was just completely opportunistic. She didn't think about it. And to be fair, I'm shocked that she got to the moment where they were ready to sign the contracts. And then they were still like, are you sure he's okay?
Yeah, this does not add up. But she tried to get a loan for about £2,500.
Okay, so not much then.
Not a massive amount. But
she's
then
probably going to get like a slap on the wrist.
Well, I don't know. So I think she's obviously gone and been called in to the police station. I don't know what's happened. So whether she actually killed him, we don't know. If it's a natural death. Don't know the details, but whether it was just an opportunity for her to go, I can't get a loan, but my uncle can, whilst he's still, I don't know, got some colour in his skin.
When did this all happen?
Just a couple of weeks ago.
Man, you got to keep us updated. Like, did she murder him or not? Or did he just die of natural causes? I don't know.
I will try and find out if I can. But apparently, in Ireland last year, 2 men were jailed for attempting to use a dead man's body to deceive a post office and claim his pension.
Okay. I mean, these things happen, though. Like, you hear about it all the time where people conceal, like, their parents' death so they can continue to claim their pension.
Yeah. But the thought, I would never think that I could get away with it, but these people did. So this couple these 2 men in Ireland, there's CCTV footage of both men dragging the lifeless body of this 66-year-old guy who had a hat on from his home to the post office. And
sunglasses, obviously.
Yeah,
you need sunglasses, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise then there's no hope. There's no way you're getting away with that unless there's sunglasses.
Nodding. And that's what they did in Weekend at Bernie's. They put sunglasses on and everything. Yeah.
Okay, I need to watch this film.
So yeah, that's my latest thing this week.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'll definitely be watching Weekend at Bernie's. So my little story comes out of Poland, where a woman called animal control in Krakow saying that an animal had been hanging around in a tree in her local community. And like, people were really scared, like, to open up the windows just in case like the animal left the tree and made their way into their houses and stuff. So for 2 days, residents just shut themselves away in their homes and avoided going near the tree just in case the animal pounced on people that were walking by. So after a couple of days, this local woman, she finally calls the animal control. And when you listen to the transcripts, like, you would believe that she was in the outback of Australia somewhere,
right,
and some animal had come out of the rainforest and was just hanging around in the tree and was dangerous because she was petrified. She was literally scared to death. And so were the rest of the people in the community. So when the officials arrived in the scene, they discovered that there was no chance that the animal was going to enter anyone's house and attack them. And I have a picture of the animal.
Okay.
And I want you to have a look at it and let me know what you think it could possibly be.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, it's kind of look like it's got brown fur, so maybe it's a squirrel, or what else hides up in trees? I'm trying to think. Is it facing down, or is it facing up? And how's it gripping onto the branches? Like, I think I can see a hand, but it's not obvious what this animal is. Maybe that's an eye.
Are you scared of it?
I don't know if I'm scared of it. I am just very confused.
Wow. So the creature that you're actually looking at in this picture, the thing that's been terrorizing this local community is in fact a croissant.
A croissant?
A croissant.
What? That was a croissant?
Yeah,
Let me look at this again. I mean, yeah, I guess it is the colour of a croissant now that you said that. Like,
and now that you know there's a croissant, to me, it very much looks like a croissant.
Yeah. No,
just lodged in that tree.
Now it looks delicious. I'd have that.
So they're not sure how it got up there, but people were speculating that maybe that someone was trying to feed the local birds and they just lobbed it up there and it just got wedged between 2 branches. But the thing is, if you read the transcripts of this woman calling animal control, like, she's petrified, man. She's genuinely petrified, but this is a Dow croissant that's stuck in the tree.
Is she visually impaired then? And also, a croissant isn't that big, so to be petrified of an Like, how did that look?
I can't explain it.
Yeah.
But she's not the only one. Like, there were neighbors that were petrified, locking their windows. So other people have seen it as well. It's not just this one crazy woman. It's a bunch of people that had seen this creature and were like, what the hell is that?
Did they not have French pastries in Poland?
Well, they must have, because someone has bought that pastry.
Yeah, but are they perhaps just not that common? So
Yeah,
people
maybe.
Are like, oh.
That's not a pierogi. Yeah, so that's all my latest things for this week.
Very good.
Hey fans, Kyle here. We have an exciting announcement for all you die-hard fans of the Compendium who find themselves eagerly waiting more after we wrap up every Tuesday. Adam and I work tirelessly each week to ensure we have a small backlog of episodes that is ready to be released every Tuesday. Often, these episodes just sit idle waiting for their Tuesday release. So, we've decided to put these episodes to work by releasing one whole new episode early every single week, just for those who can't bear the idea of waiting another week for the next episode to drop. To access this episode ahead of schedule, simply follow the Compendium podcast on Instagram and click the link in our bio to our Patreon. Joining is completely free. All you need to do is sign up for an account and join the Compendium podcast on the free tier. This will unlock one new episode early each week. We also plan to post regular updates on what we've been up to and what we are currently working on, so you can share your ideas on which topics we should cover next. If after you enjoy your free early access episode and you're left wanting more, you can subscribe to access up to 4 brand new episodes 4 weeks early. Patreon is new to us and we're still finding our feet. We don't know what this Patreon will become. It's kind of up to you. So come along and tell us what you want to see more of or less of. Now, let's get back to the show. So Adam, House of Gucci. Father, son, House of Gucci. It's me, Patrizia Reggiani.
Will you be doing the accent throughout the whole?
I will be. I'm going to try if I can. I just love this story so much. So, in 1921, Guccio Gucci opens his first artisanal luggage atelier in Florence, and his vision was to combine exceptional Tuscan materials and craftsmanship with the elegant English aesthetic that he had observed during his time working as a luggage porter at the famous Savoy Hotel in London. It was a family affair. The entire family worked alongside an employee base of very skilled artisans to craft these gorgeous leather luggage pieces. And in a very relatively short amount of time, Gucci was already well known for its quality. However, following Italy's invasion of Ethiopia by Benito Mussolini, you know who that is, right? That's the big dictator of the time that was around at the same time as Hitler and
Yeah.
load of shenanigans going on. This all happened in 1935. And as a result, the League of Nations decided to impose a trade embargo on Italy. And this actually meant that it was almost impossible for people in the country to gain access to materials like oil, rubber, tin, and leather. And so as a result, if Guccio was going to survive, then he needed to get creative. And so he started experimenting with alternative materials and fabrics like hemp and wood. Mm-hmm. And this ultimately gives rise to Gucci's iconic wooden kind of bamboo cane handle. So when we were at that expedition, you would have noticed some of the materials that we used. There was lots of kind of canvas, hemp with the designs imposed on them with the bamboo handles. Well, they were one of the first people in the world to start incorporating those types of materials into their luggage, and hence why it's become so iconic.
So that was all because they had this
trade embargo
on them. I guess it's creative to be able to do that. Now that's now considered luxury.
It's considered luxury and it's considered iconic because there's nothing else like it, right? When you see the hemp bags and that Gucci embossed kind of pattern on it, the diamond pattern, as well as the handles, it's so iconically Gucci, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So at the time, they also perfected a technique for tanning the Gucci logo into the hemp bags as well, rather than just having a metal motif on it. It was actually became part of the fabric, and they were one of the first people to actually do that. As well as that, they also developed their famous signature rhombi motif pattern. That's the kind of the little triangles that you see with the Gucci kind of logo on it. And this was hugely successful because Where other leather merchants were failing or going out of business, Gucci managed to reimagine the concept of what a high-quality luggage item was and its construction. And this reimagining made Gucci stand out against the sea of other kind of luggage items that were currently available on the market. That just was part of their major success. So Guccio Gucci, he has 3 sons. He has Aldo, Vasco, and Rodolfo.
Great names.
I know, right?
Alvin, Simon, Theodore, but Italian.
Hang on, is that the Chipmunks?
Yeah.
Okay, well remembered. So they were all being groomed to succeed Guccio and run the company after he died. In particular, Gucci's eldest son, Aldo, was being pegged to be the head of the family business. And for good reason too, because he was super passionate and also he was progressive in how he wanted to run the business as well. And he understood that for a business to succeed, they needed to evolve and move into other products, especially if they didn't want another situation like what happened during the embargo in 1935 to happen again. So they had to keep reinventing and reimagining and being creative with their products. And also, Aldo convinces his father that they should branch out into personal handbags and other goods like shoes, fragrances, and accessories, because up until this point, it was just luggage, essentially, not like handbags and things like that. Aldo, he also did something really smart. So, as you know, Gucci isn't cheap. And everyone knows this. And Gucci knew it as well, but they wanted to justify why it wasn't cheap. So they come up with a brand new slogan that was primarily there to underscore the company's commitment to quality over cost. But what it ended up doing was so much more than that, because this slogan, even to this day, has ended up being analyzed extensively for its cleverness and its effectiveness within marketing courses and marketing degrees all over the world.
I'm intrigued. What is it?
Quality is remembered long after price is forgotten.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's incredibly effective because these simple 8 words achieved several big feats for the brand, right? First off, of course, it met its first objective, and that is that it underscored their commitment to quality over price. So, check.
Yeah.
But it also resonated emotionally with consumers, suggesting that investing in Gucci isn't just merely a purchase, it's an investment in lasting value. Mm-hmm. But also, it subtly looks its nose down on anyone who might even question the price for being too high. And it does it in a kind of sneering way, like, you know, oh darling, you poor thing, you don't know quality is remembered long after price is forgotten.
You'd disregard price because it's not even important.
Yeah, it's not even a factor. Oh, you question price. Oh, this product's not for you.
Yeah,
darling, no.
I like that. And also, I guess if you've got a product that you really love and like, you are probably going to forget, how much did I pay for that? I just love this product.
Exactly. So the slogan also instantaneously positions them as a luxury high-end brand to passerbys who are walking past the store without needing any prior knowledge about the business. It's right there under the name. Quality is remembered long after price is forgotten. So as soon as you see those words, you know it's going to be kind of a high-quality kind of store. It was also memorable and simple, creating obviously a clear perception of value. But my favorite aspect is how it fosters brand loyalty. And you'll notice, as soon as I tell you this, you'll notice another business who's done exactly the same thing.
Right.
So the slogan embeds a trust contract between the customer and the business even before you've made a purchase whatsoever. And after buying, you leave knowing that if it's not true, then you can get your money back because the contract is literally written above the store's door. Quality is remembered long after price is forgotten. So if you go home and the quality is not there, like, you go back and say, like, you're not meeting your obligation, right? That's your contract that's written above the door. And it's smart. Can you think of another brand that does something very similar?
I was thinking, is it John Lewis?
Yes!
Yeah.
Yeah, so theirs is...
Never knowingly undersold.
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that kind of rang. As soon as you said that, that's the first thing that came into my head.
Clever, right?
Yeah.
So, in 1952, the famous Gucci loafer is then launched, and they have this iconic metal schnaffle, which I just love that word.
Schnaffle?
Schnaffle. That's the thing that the horse bites onto. So when you think of the Gucci loafer with that kind of like metal kind of thing over the shoe, that's a horse schnaffel.
Is it?
Yeah.
They put that on a shoe?
A version of it. Okay. It's not going to be a big old rusty horse schnaffel that they've just ripped off a horse and go, oh, let's put this on a shoe.
That's
it's a miniature version.
Do you know where we should put this?
On a shoe. Schnaffel. So if you Google it, you'll know exactly what shoe we're referring to. It's just probably the most iconic item that they have in their collection. So by 1953, under Aldo's leadership, Gucci is extremely famous and the brand becomes a major staple amongst kind of the world rich and elite. Most famous of them all will later be Jackie Kennedy, who was once perhaps wearing one of their most kind of famous hobo bags. At the time, it wasn't that famous, but the second that she was seen wearing that bag, like the brand just took off and that particular handbag became one of the most iconic handbags in their collection.
That must be like a thing for anyone or any brand out there that wants to, I don't know, propel themselves forward, is just get a deal with a celebrity.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, people do that today with kind of like influencers and things like that. It's probably not as effective getting an influencer doing it because who are they?
No, but if you got Beyonce wearing that,
exactly,
then it would transform things.
And this is the equivalent. Like, soon as Jackie Kennedy was seen wearing one of their bags, it just propelled them into a whole new international level. Because remember, Jackie was one of the most famous women alive at that point. So Gucci literally just changed the name of that hobo bag to the Jackie.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
They got rid of the hobo bag.
It's still a hobo bag, but it's because that's a style, but they gave it a name called the Jackie.
The Jackie.
So Aldo is doing wonders for the Gucci brand at this point, but he wants to go bigger. So he tries to convince his father to expand Gucci globally. But for a long time, Guccio is really reluctant because he's worried that having an international brand would make it a lot harder to control for quality and the aesthetics. So for ages, going global was just not on the table at all. And the company stayed a bit stagnant for a while, but people were still wanting access to their products. Mm-hmm. So it just made sense for them to go global and to satisfy that demand, but they just never did. But then in 1953, unfortunately, Guccio Gucci, he dies and he leaves Aldo in charge of everything. But even though Aldo is in charge, all three sons, Aldo, Vasco, and Rodolfo, they all have an equal share of the company.
But they're not doing half the work?
They're involved, but they're not like at the helm.
This definitely feels like Succession.
It does, doesn't it? So now with Aldo at the helm, he decides that he's going to take Gucci international. And in 1961, they open up their first Gucci stores in London and in Palm Beach. And by this time, Gucci is so elite and exclusive that they literally don't really have to be desperate for customers at all because customers are desperate for them. Customers are coming to them to buy their goods. They don't have to advertise or anything because they're so renowned at this point already. So because of this, they have the license to Gucci the way that they want to Gucci. And if anyone tells them otherwise, they're just like, fuck you, we can do what we want.
We can do what they want. They create the rules.
And even though they were now this international brand, they still kept their humble family values at the heart of their business. For instance, like all stores across the globe, no matter where they all were mandated to close for family lunch for 1 hour every single day. So often there'll be customers just banging on their doors like in New York, demanding to be let in. But Gucci were just like, Vava Napoli.
Vava Napoli.
Vava Napoli. That's what Joey says in Friends.
What does that actually mean?
Vava Napoli. Go to hell. I don't know. Or it could be even something worse. I don't know.
Aren't you supposed to be Italian? Aren't you supposed to know this?
Papali boopali. Yeah.
Mario.
Mario. So in 1974, so we jumped ahead a few years, Vasco, he's the middle child. He suddenly dies. He and his wife didn't have any children of their own, and his wife has no interest in running Gucci at all. So she sells her share to the Gucci brothers, who now both have an exact equal share of the business,
50%, right?
Both have 50%. And the fact that Vasco dies without any children leaves Aldo and Rodolfo questioning the fate of the business after they die.
Right, okay.
And this is where fractures in the business really start to materialize. Aldo is obviously the one who's running the business, and he has, of course, the most experience. So it would make sense for control to stay in his lineage when he dies. But Aldo has 3 children in the line of succession, and Rodolfo, the one who's not at the helm, only has 1 child.
Right.
So this means that when Aldo dies, his 50% stake is going to be split amongst 3 people. Yet when Rodolfo dies, his entire stake will pass to his only child.
Okay, and then he potentially gets the overwhelming majority.
Exactly. Gucci is going to experience this huge shift in control from Aldo, who is driving all the company's success, to his brother's line, who is essentially just there for the ride and barely doing any of the work. So can you imagine how you must feel?
Yeah.
Knowing that, my share is going to be split between my 3 kids, but then my brother, who is just not motivated, is all of a sudden going to pass on 50% of his company to his only son.
Yeah. And then also, who's going to be best at running that company after then?
Exactly.
Is it going to be this one son or the 3 kids? Or...
Patrizia Reggiani. Nah.
Is she the daughter of one of them?
No, you're going to find out.
Okay.
Yeah. So even though Aldo and Rodolfo are like a long way off dying, the kids are already well aware of this situation, right? So ever since the cousins were young enough to understand, they completely resent Rodolfo's son, who is Maurizio Gucci. They understand that he's one day going to have a 50% stake of the business, while the other 3, whose father's been running the business, they're going to have to share 50% stake. So there's resent there for him already. And I feel really bad for him because he's hated just for being born and not having any siblings, which is a bit shit, really. His very existence is a threat because one day he is going to own more of the company than his actual cousins do. So I feel bad for him. On top of this, Maurizio's childhood is also very sad as well. So he was born in 1948, and when he was just 5 years old, his mother dies, and his father, Rodolfo, becomes incredibly overprotective of him, and he's never allowed to leave the house. And when he does, it's pretty much to school and then back again. So when he does become an adult, things hardly change for him either as well. He's expected to have dinner with his dad pretty much every single night. And his father just continues to exert control over every single aspect of his life. And Maurizio just doesn't know any better. Maurizio just ends up growing up feeling really lonely, like compared to his cousins, really.
Does he resent his father?
I think when his father finally dies, I think there's a massive relief there, and he can finally become the person that he wants to be. But he seems to be a little bit like his dad, very frightened, very unmotivated, not very driven. But I also get the sense that if he had a decent role model in his life, if his dad was Aldo, he would have been capable of extraordinary things.
Okay.
So Aldo's kids, and by extension, obviously, Maurizio's cousins, are Giorgio, Paolo, and Roberto. There is a 4th child as well, but she's from an affair. And her story is interesting. She grows up with Aldo being very much involved in her life. And she knows that her dad owns 50% of this kind of internationally renowned brand. But what she doesn't know is that her father has 3 other kids and that they are the ones that are set to inherit the business. And she doesn't find this out until she's like into her teens.
Really?
Yeah. So her dad is heavily involved. He's always around. He lives with her mum. They're not married, but she doesn't know that he's got these 3 other kids. Shit.
That is bizarre.
It is really bizarre.
And then the fact that she thinks that she's going to get this company and she doesn't. Does she get any of it?
She is involved in the business. And this isn't a story about her, but her story is very interesting. So I will leave some links to her story in the show notes so you can go read about it. But yeah, she does get involved in the business, but she doesn't inherit a stake in the business. So anyway, because of Maurizio's upbringing, he ends up growing up into this very timid young man who basically lives to do whatever his father says. He doesn't really have any gumption or determination. And it's worrying for many because he doesn't seem like someone who you would expect to run or have a majority share of a brand like Gucci, essentially. That is until November 1970, when he meets Patrizia Reggiani, who, if you've watched The House of Gucci, is played by Lady Gaga, Father, Son, House of Gucci.
Is this how she speaks?
This is how she speaks. It's
Okay.
it's a really bad accent. You're not quite sure if it's Russian or Italian or Spanish. It's just very bizarre. But I applaud her for it because she's like just iconic in it.
Is it? But she's probably based on her. So that how Patrizia used to speak?
She speaks with an Italian accent, and Lady Gaga is a legend and an icon, but she's not very great with the accent. So
Really? I thought she would be good at that. I don't know why.
I thought she was just fine.
She was just fine.
She was fine. I don't know. So they meet at a party. And for a number of years, they'd been socializing in the same circles. And even though they knew the same people, they were extremely different. So Maurizio was, of course, tall, dark, and he was awkward, while Patrizia was hugely infectious with a ton of gravitas. And she's described as having these huge purple eyes, which she's kind of...
Purple?
Yeah, like, because she wears like this blue eyeliner, she's got these big eyes. So
she hasn't been beaten up.
No, she hasn't been beaten up. So people liken her to like Elizabeth Taylor.
Right.
But despite their differences, of course, they start dating and they fall in love. And Maurizio's father absolutely disapproves of their relationship. He just doesn't think that Patrizia comes from a good enough family to be dating Maurizio or dating a Gucci. He thinks that she's just a social climber or a gold digger. And the thing is, though, Patrizia initially grew up like seriously dirt poor. She was the only child of a humble waitress. But when she's 12 years old, her mother does meet a millionaire trucker magnate who comes into the restaurant one night. And eventually they marry. And from there, their entire life is just completely transformed. She starts going to private school. She starts attending all these big elite kind of social events. And they start moving amongst kind of upper society. But even though they're no longer poor, people still look their nose down at them because they were considered new money.
Right,
they're still trashy and they've just come into their money. It's not like old family money.
I guess like some of the celebrities now that we see on TV, what do you even do?
Yeah, exactly. So I could imagine someone like Meghan Markle would have been seen in the same light because she's just an actress who's become successful on her own, but she comes from quite a poor, humble family, and now she's moving within the royal circles, right before obviously all the bullshit happened.
I see. It's lucky that the waitress found a millionaire.
Yeah, like he's a trucker magnate, so he's obviously doing kind of logistics and shipping and things like that. But of course, even though like people are looking their nose down at her for being new money, Maurizio just doesn't care. He's deeply in love with her at this point. So to him, she brought excitement and adventure in a world where he was just kind of this awkward, kind of compliant kid. So she really brings him out of his shell in a way. Patrizia was able to create this buffer for him to relax in when they were in these social situations, which he loved to be in. He just didn't know how to conduct himself in it. So like a bit like me, like I always lean on you to be that social buffer when we're in these awkward social situations where I know that I can rely on you to just keep the conversation going. So there's no like awkward silences.
Do you? You do that?
When I'm feeling awkward, sometimes I don't know what to say. You always just jump in. See? Like, you're my Patrizia.
Thanks, I guess.
So she fills that mother type void that his father was never able to kind of offer him growing up. Like, do your homework, clean your room, stop using my makeup, you're grounded. Like, he just loves it. You know? Like all the things you say to me.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever said stop using my makeup.
Well, it's because I never use your makeup. Not the right colour. Right. So yeah, like she offered Maurizio a lot. She brought this loud, decisive, confident personality along with obviously her beauty. And for Patrizia, he brought status, money, and legacy. All the exact things that, of course, Patrizia really, really liked.
So they complemented each other quite well.
Yeah, she was a little bit of a gold digger, right? A status climber.
Well, you know, if she's earning her keep a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not dogging on her for it. I mean, yeah, do what you got to do. Girl got to work, right? The thing that underscores their entire relationship is that almost immediately, Patrizia is really influential over Maurizio. She knows how to control him. She knows how to influence his decision making. She knows how to kind of get him to do what she wants. And to give you a sense of how Patrizia saw Maurizio, she was quoted as saying, Maurizio is like a chair that molds to the shape of whatever person is sitting in it. Is that a good accent?
It's an accent.
Should I be embarrassed to be half Italian?
I think if people in Italy are listening, they're going nuts. They're throwing their meatballs out the window.
That's racist. So, of course, completely against Rodolfo's wishes, they get married. And like in a classic soap opera style move, Rodolfo tries to get the cardinal conducting the marriage to stop the wedding from happening. Of course, it doesn't work. So Rodolfo is just so disgusted that his son has ended up marrying this tramp that he completely disinherits Maurizio and cuts him off financially.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, so he's not going to inherit anything now?
Nope. Well, I mean, so Maurizio ends up having to go to work for Patrizio's father at the trucking business. And Patrizia's like, oh no, this won't do. Like, I married you because of your inheritance, you know. So disguised as an act of compassion, she's like, but Maurizio, he's your father. Like, so she puts all her energy into kind of like making sure that they try and reconcile their relationship. Because remember, without his inheritance, she's just some rich trucker dude's daughter, essentially. So eventually, though, her plan works and they do make amends. And the couple end up then having their first child a year later after they kind of reconcile. So he's back on the inheritance books.
Right, okay.
They've got their first kid.
That's
it's all
good.
sorted. Yeah. So Rodolfo brings Maurizio back into the Gucci company, and with Patrizia's encouragement, or what some might say, her pushing him, he starts to speak up a bit more confidently about how Gucci should be run. And as a businessman, he ends up really flourishing for the first time, and it's all because of her encouragement.
Like her coaching and like, yeah, that's interesting. So, yeah, okay, she's thinking about herself a little bit. Well, probably a lot. But at the end of the day, she's helping him
for sure.
push forward.
Because the thing is, though, she can't get the inheritance unless he...
Yeah, well, that's one way.
does well,
Otherwise, it's a divorce, right?
And also their lifestyle just takes a massive leap towards opulence. Before, he was just a really rich kid without much personality in how he chose to be rich. He lived in a huge house, sure, but it wasn't adorned with like gold railings and custom-made moldings. And yeah, sure, he drove a nice car, but it wasn't a souped-up Ferrari with like a custom rear spoiler. Kind of outwardly, he was just like a basic rich kid. Basic bitch rich kid, right?
Very vanilla.
Very vanilla. But with Patrizia in the picture, she knew that it was all about optics. It was all about looking rich, both outwardly and ostentatiously. So like I picture Patrizia as the type of girl that you see at the Sugar Hut on a Saturday night. Like she would dress how she thinks rich people would dress. It's like the equivalent of wearing like a Louis Vuitton motifed outfit with big, huge Chanel earrings and dressing how you think rich people dress, right?
Yeah,
so that's Patrizia.
I always think there's people at the airport that are in those designer sweatpants.
Yeah,
You're like, really?
it.
Who are you doing this for?
And they make a point of holding a Chanel shopping bag.
And they're not even in business class.
No, they're not.
Like,
they're
who are you
just sitting
fooling?
in economy.
You're
That's
in
it.
coach.
That's it. It's like when we were traveling to Australia and we got to Abu Dhabi airport and we were getting our connecting flight. And we saw all those people that were obviously going to Abu Dhabi to get plastic surgery done. And we saw that woman that just had a facelift. And she was dressed like in one of those brown Louis Vuitton tracksuits with her Louis Vuitton bags and everything. And on the plane, she was just like she was sitting in coach.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And also, I remember seeing that girl who was like rocking on the floor in pain.
Yeah. So when we were at this airport, it must have been kind of some tourist thing where people go to get plastic surgery done, because on that flight, there were loads of people that had hair transplants. They were on their way home and they were still recovering. And that one girl, who just had a nose job done. And she was in so much pain.
Yeah, she had her like pills in front of her and everything.
And she was like...
I can't imagine like having that done and then going on a 13-hour flight afterwards.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, when you go up in the air at 38,000 feet, you swell up.
Yeah.
And they're already swollen. So God knows what they look like when they land.
To be honest, I forgot to check. Next time.
God. But yeah, so that's how I imagine
Patrizia
Reggiani.
But is the dad liking her anymore at this point? Obviously, he's rekindled the relationship.
Well, I don't think he really has a choice. I think he still believes that she's a bit of a gold digger, but there's not much he can do. They're married now, right?
So and especially if they've got a kid as well.
Exactly. So they move to New York to run, obviously, Gucci US, and they live in the Olympic Tower on Fifth Avenue. And this is a huge duplex penthouse, which is spanned across the entire 50th and 51st floor of the building. So they've got two full stories completely to themselves. It's huge. They become huge players on the social scene where they are friends with Jackie Kennedy Onassis. They spend their days just partying on yachts and buying a bunch of holiday homes all around the world. And what I just love about their story at this period of their lives is that they have a private limousine that they are chauffeured around in, and the license plate reads Maurizio which is basically a portmanteau for their names, Maurizio and Patrizia. So essentially, they are the original Brangelina.
Really?
Yeah, that's pretty much one of the first instances where we see that.
I guess. It also makes sense. They probably couldn't fit either of their names like completely on this license plate.
I get the sense if Patrizia had the say, she would just have her own name on there. Patrizia Reggiani. And it would even be elongated with that, like 9 A's.
You need like 3 license plates for that.
Yeah, that's it. She doesn't care. So people would often like comment on how symbolic that was because it really perfectly encapsulated their relationship as this kind of partnership. Like without each other, they wouldn't be this ambitious, successful power couple that they were. And kind of Patrizia brought confidence and Maurizio essentially just brought the means and the name and the power and the money. Maurizio was the instrument she knew how to play.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And I think like very early on as well, like Patrizia knew that Maurizio had to do a lot of work if they were going to make a success of the business after like he gets his inheritance, because Maurizio's dad, Rodolfo, wasn't the ambitious type, especially compared to his brother Aldo, as we already discussed. And as a result, Maurizio never got that drive instilled in him as a young kid that he needed. So she knew this, and she knew that she needed to mold him into the kind of businessman that he needed to be in order to run Gucci.
Fine.
So after that.
So what was happening with the other 3 kids, the cousins at this point?
So the cousins, they all knew that their dad would probably die or retire eventually. So in order to future-proof their stake in the company, they start setting up all these separate deals to use the Gucci's name for other things, right? And this is where the Gucci logo becomes recognizable amongst just ordinary people. They start licensing it for watches and belts and sunglasses and perfumes and things like that. And Patrizia and Maurizio, they hate this because Gucci is now affordable to the masses. And this results in counterfeit items starting to just saturate the market. So in the film, you see Patrizia going out in the street one day and she sees this guy on the street selling counterfeit items from China, and loads of them are just Gucci items. And she's just outraged because they've now cheapened the brand essentially by selling all these different kind of licenses to different companies, which has then made China see that there's a demand for these items, and then they've just flooded it with counterfeit items.
But surely that also must help them in some way, but I guess she perhaps doesn't see that.
They don't see it that way, no. And so by like the 1980s, Gucci has gone from being this brand that is so exclusive and so out of reach to ordinary people, where they were making like literally bespoke handbags for like Jackie Kennedy, to being a staple of street vendors selling Gucci on like street corners. So it's completely cheapened it. So eventually Rodolfo, that's obviously Maurizio's dad, he dies in 1983. And Maurizio, of course, inherits 50% of Gucci all to himself. And finally, Patrizia is like, yes, bitch, we are in charge.
We are Gucci.
We are Gucci. It's our name, sweetie. That's one of the lines that she says in the show.
Right, okay.
And first of all, so she starts going around calling herself the first lady of Gucci.
I mean,
it's ballsy.
I guess so, yeah.
So she becomes this really power-hungry, in charge, kind of bitch Dallas style kind of villain. Joan Collins, essentially.
Big hair and shoulder pads.
Big hair, shoulder pads, shoulder pads, you name it, yeah. So she's completely insufferable. And for the first time in his life, Maurizio, following obviously his father's death, like he feels free from that incredibly controlling presence that his father had over him for most of his life. And he just loves it. Like he really comes into his own. But it's at this moment as well that he realizes that his father's presence wasn't the only controlling factor hanging over him, because more and more, Patrizia was trying to call the shots. And now, for the very first time, he saw that for what it was.
It's the power. Yeah, he feels like he's obviously being managed by his dad or whatever. And now, without him out of the way, he can see clearer. And he's like, oh, actually, the same thing's happening, but with my wife.
Exactly that. So, one day, he says that he's going on a work trip. He says goodbye to Patrizia and their 2 daughters, and he just never comes back. He doesn't have the nerve to tell Patrizia that he's leaving, so he sends one of his friends to be like, oh, by the way, Maurizio's breaking up with you. So
really? As casual as that?
Yeah. Just sends one of his mates.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, he probably would still not be where he was today if it wasn't for Patrizia.
Correct. But he doesn't see it that way, right?
Yeah, fine. All right.
So, of course, Patrizia is
Pissed?
furious. Yeah, of course. And she looks like she spent years molding Maurizio into the man that he needed to be to run his share of Gucci. And then he just goes ahead and dumps her. So, like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it, man. I'd be furious. He starts making moves in the company all on his own, and it begins to materialize that he's not actually a great businessman at all. And now that he has dumped Patrizia, who was, of course, the brains behind the company, things just start falling to shit because the family just can't agree on anything, right? He's making really bad decisions that the cousins just can't get behind.
So it was really down to Patrizia who was making a lot of the business decisions, or at least like steering him in the right direction.
Apparently, yeah. And that's kind of how the film would also portray it as well. Behind every great man is an even better woman, right? Is that the saying?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So amongst the family is this weird, complicated game of 4D chess with moves just being flung all over the place, and a whole new level of resentment starts to settle in. The cousins are just desperate to build their own legacy by licensing the Gucci's name to all sorts of lower quality tacky products, which obviously their dad, Aldo, who technically still owns 50% of the business, just completely disapproves of. So he wants to put a complete stop to that as well. But they are like, but you're going to die soon, and we need to make sure that we can get a bit of money before our stake or our control in the business kind of diminishes.
They need to prove their value a little bit.
Yeah, they need to prove the value. But also, like Maurizio, he also disapproves of what the cousins are doing, trying to sell or license kind of the Gucci name. But because he has his own power struggle with Aldo, who, remember, still owns 50% of the business, Aldo is constantly overruling him based on, obviously, Maurizio's lack of experience and being new to the game and things like that, and that really pisses him off. So he decides that he needs to pick his battles, and he starts to plan behind the scenes what his next move is going to be to try and get a one-up over Aldo.
Okay.
Right? So he teams up against Aldo with his cousin Paolo. So this is Aldo's son, all right, in an attempt to drive a wedge amongst Aldo and his kids. And what they do is they snitch on Aldo for evading $7 million in tax. And this results in Aldo being sent to prison, and the poor guy is 81 years old.
Well, I can't believe his son has gone along with this and going like...
They've done this on the pretense that if he's out the way, then you are free to then continue to license the Gucci name on other things. And because they're so desperate to build a legacy for themselves and to carve out a bit of kind of revenue for themselves.
So even though Maurizio is not happy with the licensing, he'd rather this happen to get Aldo out of the way. So I guess he can push forward more of his decision making.
That's right. But the thing is, though, once Aldo's out the way, Maurizio then puts a stop to the cousins licensing the Gucci name to other businesses. So he's played this kind of 4D chess game.
Yeah, and I'm surprised I didn't see that coming, to be honest.
Yeah, I know, idiots. Absolute idiots.
Right.
And the thing is, though, he's doing this all on his own because Patrizia is out of the picture at this point.
So I can see now that Maurizio is making some enemies within his family. Aldo's gone to prison. He's screwed over his cousin. And then Patrizia's like...
She's been dumped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's at least 3 people.
Yeah. Who murdered him? Who did it? So Maurizio, he's extremely ruthless, but he also has a desire to bring Gucci back to its old glory days and make it that luxury brand that it once was prior to the 80s. But ultimately, he also understands that there's only a limited amount of time that he can hold the other cousins off, right? So he needs to do something a bit more permanent. So he decides that he's going to try his very best to make the lives of his cousins and his uncle as miserable as possible, to the point that they would be willing to sell their share in Gucci to him and get out of the business.
What could he do for that to happen?
So his plan is to finance this by negotiating with this really huge Saudi Arabian investment firm to front up a bunch of money to get Aldo to sell him their business.
Okay.
Because the thing is, though, what he's done is very clever. He has worked with his cousin, so Aldo's son, to get him sent to jail, right? So now all of a sudden, Aldo's sitting there thinking, fuck, my sons have completely betrayed me. Fuck them if they're going to get a share of the business. So now Maurizio is going to say, hey, how about I buy you out? And he's going to say, this is great revenge to my sons who have like sent me to jail. Let me sell my 50% stake of the business to my nephew, and that will stick two fingers up to my sons, essentially.
Yeah. I see how he would now do that.
And that's exactly what happens. And to his credit, this is a brilliant move. Like bringing in an investment company, Gucci was essentially the first to do it. So today, you'd be hard pressed to find a fashion house that doesn't have an investment company behind them. They all are owned by these big kind of like venture capitalist kind of investment funds that are out there. Mm-hmm. So after securing the deal, he presents his offer to the family, and immediately Aldo agrees, because at this point, he's in his 80s, he's just got out of prison, and he's just had enough of all the mind games and all the calculated moves, and he just wants to stick it up to kind of his sons. And so the three cousins were no longer in line to inherit a third of Aldo's 50% stake in Gucci. And Maurizio was now chairman of the entire company. He's got his family out of the way now. So brilliant move.
Savvy.
Mm-hmm. So he had completely ousted Patrizia, the brains obviously behind the entire operation, and he had now eliminated every remaining Gucci family member from the business. With all the family out, Maurizio makes sweeping changes to Gucci. Basically, he dissolves all of the Gucci licensing deals that the cousins had secured. He also then brings in Tom Ford to be the creative director of Gucci, and he starts working with him to bring Gucci back to what it was in its glory days.
Right. Didn't know he was involved.
Yeah. Tom Ford's first big gig was working for Gucci.
So this is obviously
director.
Before he had his own brand and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But kind of like how the original Gucci, who founded Gucci, he got his sort of big break, or at least his inspiration, from working at the Savoy, another prestigious hotel in London. And then same way with Tom Ford, he's got his first big break
by working for...
Went on to do great
things.
I
guess so. Yeah.
Wow.
But the thing is, though, like, Maurizio is spending huge amounts of cash in order to bring Gucci back to its old glory days. And the thing is, though, none of this is very sustainable at all. Yeah, they have some great ideas, but he's literally hemorrhaging cash. And also remember, he's not a very good businessman at all. He makes some really poor decisions. So within a few years, the Saudis are just like, yeah, we're getting rid of you because we gave you all of this money and you still haven't made us any profit whatsoever. So in 1993, the investment firm decides that they're going to buy out Mauricio's share of Gucci for $170 million at the time. And they kick him out of the company. And that was ultimately the end of Gucci as a family-run business.
And that's it. They're not involved. None of the Gucci family are involved in this business anymore.
No Gucci's in the Gucci family.
No way.
Just owned by a bunch of Saudis.
170 million. That sounds like a nice amount of money and an easy life, right?
Exactly. I mean, Maurizio's not really that sour or sore about it. So for the first time ever, there's just no Gucci family members part of the Gucci company. And for the first time in a long time, the company is thriving. Tom Ford is on record as saying that when this all happened, obviously he was shocked that it happened, but it was such a relief because there was no more of this bizarre family soap opera style infighting and drama. They could just get on with running the company. They could run Gucci.
He must have felt like he was in some sort of telenovela.
That's exactly it. So throughout all of this, Patrizia is obviously furious because not only did she build up this man to be this leader, only to have him then dump her, but then she has to watch helplessly as he loses his entire family legacy. And that's the whole reason why she even got involved with him in the first place, because she wanted that for herself.
She's not happy, is she?
No, she's not. So Maurizio starts dating this new woman and they're living in Italy together. And he has this $170 million and he's just chilling out, trying to work out what he's going to do with the rest of his life. The first thing that he decides to do is that he's officially going to ask Patrizia for a divorce. And in the settlement, she gets the house that she's currently living in with her daughters, but it's not owned by her. It's in a trust for the girls for when they're older. She is given an annual alimony amount of $1.5 million, which she calls a mere bowl of lentils.
Wow.
And also, in one of her most famous quotes, she says, "I'd rather be sad in a Rolls Royce than happy on a bicycle."
I I am liking this woman.
She's brilliant. But what pisses her off the most is that in the divorce settlement, she can no longer refer to herself as a Gucci, which is the one thing that was the most important to her. So she's completely outraged. She says, I was the most Gucci of them all.
I can see that, actually.
She officially goes back to being Patrizia Reggiani, but regardless of the divorce settlement, she still refers to herself as Patrizia Gucci, the first lady of Gucci, and she's still going around telling people that's who she is. So to sum up, he has ousted his entire family from the company. He has stopped them from making millions of dollars from tacky watches. He sends his 81-year-old uncle to jail. He really pisses off his ex-wife, who believes that she has made him who he is. Then he goes ahead and loses the entire company to a bunch of Saudi Arabians. And in the middle of all of this, Maurizio walks into his office building on the 27th of March, 1995, and is shot dead by a hitman. So immediately after his death, it's huge international news. The funeral is, of course, extravagant, with Patrizia front and center, weeping with her daughters, wearing a black veil and tan aviator sunglasses. It's very 90s, very Italian. And there's just a lot of speculation in the press over who could have hired a hitman to kill Maurizio. But because there were so many people with a motive to do it, it takes investigators 2 years to work it all out.
Really? That's a considerable amount of time.
Yeah.
I guess through a
They have
hitman.
almost no leads as well up until the end of those 2 years.
Yeah, because I guess there's no like DNA left that's linking it to them.
No. But I'm going to spoil it now for you.
Okay.
Because I'm just going to tell you right now, Patrizia did it.
Oh, well, I kind of guessed.
And she would have almost got away with it if it wasn't for some guy running his mouth in some bar.
Those pesky kids.
There's pesky hitman hanging out in bars. So everyone in the family immediately thinks, of course, it's Patrizia, that she did it, although they didn't have obviously any proof. And this is all based on the fact that she was super vocal about how pissed off she was, of course, following the divorce and losing obviously her rights to use the Gucci name. So this also wasn't helped by the fact that just 2 hours after Maurizio was shot dead, she sends an eviction notice to his girlfriend in the mansion that they were living in, where she then moves in with her daughters the very next day.
Yeah, you think maybe you should wait, I don't know, a few days, a week,
Yeah,
maybe?
what's an acceptable amount of time?
I don't know.
2 days?
A month? Wait until he's in the ground, then like, that house you're in?
Exactly.
I'm going to want that back.
Red flags, right? Red flags. Plus, also, various people started coming forward saying that in the months leading up to his death, Patrizia had been asking around for how she could hire someone to kill Maurizio. So, I mean, that's the blatant thing, right?
And it took them 2 years?
Yeah, it did. Well, it wasn't until one night 2 years later when some guy in a bar was bragging about how he had helped hire the hitman who had killed Maurizio Gucci. And the owner of the bar hears this, and then he calls police, and then from there, everything just unravels very, very, very quickly. It turns out that Patrizia asked her astrologer if she knew how to hire a hitman, and the astrologer was like, yeah, probably. Like, so the astrologer asks a friend, Benito Caralho, I think that's how you pronounce that, and he's like, sure, for the right price. And Patrizia pays him $415,000 to kill Maurizio.
That's quite a lot of money.
It's a huge amount of money.
Yeah, because we were looking at the average hit a while back, and it was like 20K.
Not to kill anyone, it was just for research purposes.
And that's asking her astrologer. That's so random.
I know, right?
That's like asking our barber, going, "Oh, hey,
how can I kill someone?"
Yeah, any ideas?
Yeah, I can't help you with that, but I can maybe give you a razor to slice someone's ear off. I can help you with that.
I could do a cutthroat shave and slip.
Yeah. Oops! I've killed someone. So everyone involved is arrested, and they all start talking immediately to save themselves. So Patrizia is arrested at 4 a.m. in the morning, and in classic dynasty style, she refuses to leave the house until she puts on her fur coat and all of her jewelry. And when they ask her to take off her hat for the mugshot at the jail, she completely has a tantrum. She is so furious that they make her take off her hat for a mugshot. So when you see the picture of her, she has really bad shitty hair because it's not brushed, because she's got like really bad hat hair. So she goes obviously off to trial. And another example of how this whole shit show is like a scene from Days of Our Lives. Her defense is that she did ask around about getting Maurizio killed, but That's because she had just recently had brain surgery for a benign tumor, and that had made her crazy, but she didn't actually do it. So her defense was basically, I'm not guilty, my brain is guilty.
And I only asked, I didn't actually do it.
I didn't actually do it, and it was the brain injury that made me do it.
Right, and how well did that stand up in court?
Well, the judge is like, lol, no.
Lol.
Okay, Patrizia, whatever. And what didn't help her case was that they had found all the bank statements showing where the payments had gone to the hitman. Plus, the weeks before Maurizio's murder, in her diary, she had written the words vendetta. And then on the day of the murder, she had written another word, paradisio, which is Greek for paradise.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's a clear-cut, closed case, right?
Yeah, I don't have any written evidence.
No.
She was sloppy.
Exactly. So Patrizia and everyone involved, including the astrologer and the hitman, they're all found guilty of the murder of Maurizio Gucci. And she is sentenced to 29 years in prison. And she serves just 16 years because she obviously gets out on parole for good behavior.
What is it with these people that kill people and get out so early?
The brilliant thing is that she could have got out of prison way sooner, but she refused to do any work on work release, saying, I've never worked a day in my life. I'm not going to start now.
Oh my God. She sounds like the most stubborn person ever.
But ultimately, they force her to do some work, and that results in her being released in 2014. So she's released on work release, and the first thing she does is go shopping on Milan's main street, dressed in fur, jewelry, and wearing a stuffed parrot on her shoulder.
Stuffed parrot?
Yeah, a big giant stuffed parrot. It's
Why?
iconic. I don't know. It's just, I don't know, a fashion icon.
A pirate?
So she's then hired by a jewelry company as a design consultant who most people think they just wanted the publicity. And apparently all she does all day is just read fashion magazines, and occasionally she'll like tell them what trends are in. That's what she does.
This is shit.
This is shit. Get out of my face. Can I go on break? But the thing is, hiring her just ended up having the opposite effects. They got a bunch of shit for hiring her. And they did eventually have like one fashion show, which they were hoping by having her kind of working for them would draw a lot of press attention. But Gucci decides that they were going to hold their own fashion show on the exact same day that this jewelry company did. So it ended up just completely overshadowing any positive kind of publicity that they were hoping to get at all. A reporter asked her if she hated Maurizio so much, why did she just not kill him herself? And this was her response. My eyesight is not so good, darling. I didn't want to miss. She's just relentless. She's just brilliant.
Oh, God, let's get her over at Christmas.
Oh, my God, for sure. So she also talks about how she ended up living with her 89-year-old mother in a small flat. And she was really pissed off because she had to start wearing Zara because the jewelry company wasn't paying her enough to buy like proper clothes.
Oh, no. That must have been devastating for her.
Absolutely. So more recently, since obviously the release of the movie House of Gucci, she is on record as saying that she was really annoyed that Lady Gaga didn't get in touch with her to talk to her about playing her in the film, which she found apparently really disrespectful. But when they asked Lady Gaga about this, Lady Gaga was like, look, like she murdered someone and she didn't want to like glorify it by kind of like engaging with her, because the record showed that Patrizia was really proud of what she did and Lady Gaga didn't really want to be part of any of that.
Yeah.
So I get it, really.
Yeah, totally.
But then Lady Gaga later in an interview on the red carpet is asked, how do you feel about playing a role that glorifies murder? And she says, I don't want to glorify murder. I want to glorify female empowerment. It's like, oh God, that's not the right thing to say, Lady Gaga.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it's kind of contradictory. I understand you definitely don't want to speak to her, but at the same time, you are highlighting a story of a murderer.
That's it. Yeah.
As fascinating as it is.
Exactly. Patrizia's daughters, Alessandra and Allegra, they're now 18 and 14, I think, when she was arrested. They're now both married. They both live in Switzerland, of course, and they're obviously filthy rich because, of course, they inherited the entire...
all the money.
Yeah, all the $170 million of it all.
And I'm assuming Patrizia didn't get her 1.5 million lentil money.
Oh, no, probably. No, mere ball of lentils. No, probably not. It probably just got taken away from her, I guess. Well, obviously, she murdered someone.
Yeah, and I wonder what her daughters think. Have they kept in touch?
Well, according to Patrizia, she hardly sees her daughters at all. She says that they don't seem to understand her. I'm like, no shit, like you killed their father.
Yeah.
So she says that she has nothing to her name and she has never met her grandsons at all, which I'm like, fair, yeah. So I guess like she got what she deserved.
I guess that's probably the worst thing that could happen to her based on what she prioritizes in her life. Money and everything. She has no money. She has no fame. She has nothing now. Mm-hmm. So this is the best sort of prison for her, I think.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Probably hell for her, isn't it? So I'll leave you with this. So she says that if she could see Maurizio again, she would tell him that she loves him because he is the person who mattered the most to her in her life. When she was asked what she thinks that he would say in reply, she says, I think he would say the feeling wasn't mutual.
So she's not completely deluded.
No. And that is the story of the Gucci family.
And Patrizia
Reggiani. What did you think?
It was good. I mean, I kind of sussed that she's probably got something to do with this.
Yeah.
But what a fascinating story and dramatic and theatrical. And yeah, what a woman.
So now thinking back to the exhibition that we went to in London, the opulence in that exhibition, do you think that the story that I've told makes sense in terms of how the exhibition was arranged?
Yeah, because in some instances it was quite over the top or really well done and just really high end. That definitely makes sense in keeping in tone. So they're carrying that vision forward for the brand.
It was smart.
Yeah.
It was smart. I don't think it's running anymore, certainly in London. I think it ended in April, so essentially this month. But wherever it's showing, if it's moving around the UK, go and see it or just look it up online. It's really, really impressive.
Yeah, for sure.
So shall we run the outro?
Let's do it.
And so that's another episode of the Compendium podcast in the bag. If you enjoyed today's episode, then be sure to hit that follow button right in the app that you are listening to us right now. It really helps us more than we can articulate. You can also schedule new episodes to download automatically, and if you haven't done so already, leave us a little review. Your feedback really helps us get better. Don't forget that we release every Tuesday, and until then, remember, in the world of high fashion, sometimes the most stylish accessories are secrets and scandals. See you next time.
See ya.